And thanks for joining me tonight. I'm Hawkeye. This is Maple Leafs Man Advantage. And I'm right in the thick of things here in the 1978 NHL playoffs. And this is part 5. And we're now in the Stanley Cup Finals. So I'll just get this out of the way too. If you like this video, I'd appreciate it. Hit like. As well, you could subscribe as well. I'd really appreciate that. Or you could comment on something as well if you want to talk something you know or about hockey here. That's always cool to get your point of view or what you think. So, yeah, into the finals. It's the Montreal Canadiens who swept out the Toronto Maple Leafs in the semifinals. And on the other side, it's the Boston Bruins. So we have like an original 6 showdown here between Montreal and Boston. Like the Habs, Boston, they led the Adams, which also had the Toronto Maple Leafs. So they got a bye into the second round of the playoffs. That was the quarterfinals. Boston played the Chicago Blackhawks. Looking at that game, in Game 1, Terry O'Reilly had a goal and 3 assists. Peter McNabb had 2 goals and an assist. Ron Graham had 24 saves, and the Bruins took it by a 6-1 score. Game 2 was much tighter, and also not a lot of shots getting through, as I see by the shots on net. It took until overtime for O'Reilly to net the winner, and the Bruins took Game 2 by a 4-3 score. Game 3 was played at Chicago Stadium. Always remember that place. That place would erupt in the playoffs, I remember. Oh, it was so loud in there. John Wensink scored 2 for the Bruins right in the first period, and were later up 3-1 in the third. The Hawks, though, they stormed back to tie it up, but in overtime, Peter McNabb scored the winner. He also had an assist earlier in the game. And the Bruins took Game 3 by a 4-3 score once again. They're up 3-0. Chicago's in real trouble here and need to start winning. Let's start in Game 4. It's at home. But Brad Park of the Bruins had 2 goals and an assist. McNabb also had 2 goals, including the game winner, and the Bruins swept the Hawks away by a 5-2 score. And then in the semifinals, the Bruins played the Philadelphia Flyers, and the Bruins have home ice advantage here. Couple of tough a couple of tough teams playing each other here. In the 70s. In Game 1, both teams skated into overtime. Jean Rattel scored the opening goal of the series and had 2 assists. And it was Rick Middleton who scored the winner in overtime as the Bruins took the opener 3-2. Jerry Cheevers also had 21 saves for the win. Game 2, Bobby Schmott scored 2 goals, including a power play marker. Middleton scored 2 goals, including, once again, the game winner and an assist, and outshot the Flyers 7-5. Big score there. Game 3 was in Philly, and they really needed to find some way to win. That's towards the Flyers here. Orest Kindrachuk scored the game winner and had an assist. Bernie Perron had 24 saves. And Bobby Schmotz had 2 goals, including an empty netter, to put icing on the cake as the Bruins took a stranglehold in this series for sure with a 4-2 win. Yeah. Whoops, I'm sorry. I skipped the line there. Game 3, Bernie Perron had 24 saves, and the Flyers won 3-1. Okay, there we go. Game 4, Cheevers had 28 saves, and Schmotz scored the 2 goals, including the empty netter. The Bruins won that 4-2. So Game 5, is back in Boston, and the Flyers needed to create a win on the road. Kinderchuk popped in 2 goals for the Flyers, but in return, McNabb had a goal and 4 assists, and Don Marcotte scored the winner in the third. The Bruins knocked out the Flyers, winning Game 5 by a 6-3 score. A couple of games there where there's some goals going on here for the Bruins. So in the Stanley Cup Finals, here we go. I was able to see Game 1, old broadcast from CBC, with Danny Gallivan, Dick Irvin, and Chico Resch up in the booth. In net for Montreal, who else but Kenny Dryden's in there. By this point in the playoffs, he had an outstanding 1.78 goals against average. For Boston, it was Jerry Cheevers, who had a very nice goals against of his own of 2.74. Pretty cool during the opening of the broadcast. We see Queen's "We Are the Champions," new song at the time, fairly new anyways, from 77. This was 78. Playing over, seeing Montreal win the 1977 Stanley Cup. And yeah, it's pretty cool. It is mentioned that Don Cherry states that Guy Lafleur is the best player in the game right now for the Montreal Canadiens. That's who he plays for, but he's the best player in the game. And having heard other people at this time who were alive at that time, he isn't the only one to believe that as well. So Bob Myers is the referee for tonight's game, Game 1. So early in the game, Pierre Mondeau picks up a tripping penalty, giving the Bruins a power play opportunity. Boston scores on a nice goal where Bobby Schmaltz fires a shot to the net, and Brad Park tips it in front, putting the Bruins up by a goal. Boston seems to own the early goings-on in the game. Interesting, huh? But after the first commercial, the Canadiens put some pressure back towards the Bruins and draw a penalty as Rick Smith grabs a holding call. Quite quickly into the power play, it's Lafleur. He bats in a bouncing puck from the slot as if we were playing road hockey, and the Habs quickly tie the game back up. We're all tied up at 1 here. Scary moment when Rick Middleton is taken out by Guy Lapointe at the sideboards in the Canadian zone, and he may have knocked him out cold. Incredibly, Rick, after a few minutes, skates back over to the Bruins bench. Now remember, Middleton did not wear a helmet either, but he skates back to his bench, showing what we have learned since this point in time about head injuries. Might be a parade to the penalty box tonight, although it is not incredibly rough out there, as Rick Smith gets another penalty, this time for slashing. Montreal gets their second power play goal of the night here when Lafleur throws a very nice pass over to Yvon Lambert, who stands alone by the net and chips it past Cheevers. Boston had better stay out of the box. That it would be something, an easy game plan to try and give the Bruins stay out of the box. Montreal, best team in the league, stay out of the box. They're going to take advantage if you start getting penalties. So both their goals tonight are on the power play. Don Cherry is looking animated behind the Bruins bench, yelling at the refs, and grabs a Bruins bench penalty. Oh boy. This time the Bruins do a much better job killing this penalty off, as Montreal is not really able to set up shop and put any pressure on the Bruins in their zone. The period ends with the Canadiens up by a 2-1 score. In the first intermission, Dave Hodge hosts a program going over certain things that are done to get the playoffs and the Stanley Cup Finals ready, including right at the hockey rink. Irvin also talks with Bruins captain Wayne Cashman, and then speaks with NHL president John Ziegler and Western Junior Hockey League president Ed Chenoweth, I think is how you pronounce that. Their new Westminster Bruins win their second Memorial Cup in a row. Excellent. They talked about how the NHL will continue to support the junior hockey program in Canada still do. It is kind of funny to me because, of course, they support junior hockey in Canada. But to add to that, they also support other programs, perhaps just not as strongly like programs in the U.S. or Europe. Just before the second period, Resch talks about his first training camp with the Montreal Canadiens, where the other goalies were Ken Dryden, Rogie Vachon, Wayne Thomas, Michel Place, Phil Muir, and him, Chico Resch. Talk about depth, eh? That's a lot of NHL goalies right there. That's 6 of them. That's crazy. So during the second period, I am quickly reminded that it was a huge movie back in 1977. I wasn't around then, seen the movie many times, but the organ player starts pounding out the theme to Star Wars. Very cool as the players line up for a face-off for the second period. That would be cool to see today. Anyways, much later in the period, Montreal gets on the power play. Jacques Lemaire gets a glorious chance as he comes to the right side of the net and pulls Cheevers right out of the net, but is just unable to bury it into the net. Larry Robinson also fires a blast at the net that Cheevers kicks out, and Yvon Cornroy grabs a rebound, but Cheevers slides over and makes a second save, keeping the Canadiens from adding to their lead. The Bruins are able to kill the penalty, but minutes later, Lemaire fires a crisp pass into the slot where Steve Shutt cuts it and hammers the puck over Cheevers' shoulder to make it 3-1 for Montreal. The Habs are getting some real nice chances looking out there to maybe get the Bruins down and out. They're up by a pair here, but Cheevers is very sharp, keeping the game close enough for the Bruins. Bob Gainey looks excellent cutting down the ice away from the Bruins, getting into the offensive zone, continuing to cut in on Cheevers all alone, but the goalie is able to stop the puck. The second period ends with Montreal up now 3-1 with just 20 minutes to go. In the third period, after a few minutes of close checking, Cornway gets a breakaway that no one in the league was going to be able to catch him. That's for sure. He came in on Cheevers, fired a backhand past the Bruins goalie. This puts the Habs up by a 4-1 score. We're in the third period. And seeing the chances the Bruins are getting, this could very well be the final nail in the coffin for the Bruins. Lafleur then gets his own breakaway, and somehow Cheevers stops the shot and pounces on the puck. On another play, Doug Risebrough is coming down the wing and tries to fire one in between Cheevers' legs, but Jerry is able to close up the pads and keep the puck from crossing the line. While teams are playing 4-on-4, Middleton tries to get past Lambert, but he steals the puck and is able to get on Cheevers on a breakaway. Boy, Montreal has got, they're really taking advantage here. But Cheevers makes a gorgeous save here with a double pad stack. Cheevers is the big reason why the score is so close and Montreal is not up like 8-1 by now. On another play, Boston is working on trying to get the puck out of the zone. Lafleur gets in and throws a nice check on Mike Milbury, who hooks him mildly after the check. Mildly then turns as if he was going to slash him hard, but he doesn't. He doesn't do that. He just goes back. A riot may have started if Milbury actually did do that. So he came through in the end, said, I can't do that to Lafleur. I don't think he was really going to slash him anyways. I think it was all just a deke. It was a goof. He wasn't going to do it. At the end of the game, Boston started giving Dryden some action here now, but he was able to stop all shots, and Montreal skated to a 4-1 Game 1 win at home. Lafleur was the number one star with his goal and 2 assists, and yes, he looked very, very good out there. And give him an inch, and you have a chance to be digging the puck out of your net. That is for sure, no doubt about it. Yes, before I get to the next game in this series, the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Minnesota North Stars made a trade. The Leafs sent defenseman Jim McKinney to Minnesota, and the Leafs received the rights to defenseman Owen Lloyd and cash. The date of the transaction was May the 15th, 1978. McKinney ended up playing just 10 games for the North Stars with 1 goal, 1 assist. Lloyd had played 3 games in the WHA, notching 1 goal, 4 penalty minutes in 1977-78 for the Edmonton Oilers. Lloyd would not end up playing any games in the NHL, along with the cash and the fact that Jim did not play very much himself. I give this trade the green light, although McKinney did some great things in Toronto and everything like that, but I'm fine with it. I'm fine with that trade. So there you have it. Now, the game 2 I was able to see, it was once again another old CBC broadcast with Danny Galvin, Dick Irvin, and Chico Rash. Same 3 guys. In net for the Canadiens, Kenny Dryden. His goals against average has dropped. It's now 1.7. And for the Bruins, it's Jerry Cheevers. Still has a very respectable goals against average of 2.92. Before the game, it is mentioned a couple times that Boston understands they need to win a game on the road in Montreal in order to win the Stanley Cup. They have to win at least 1 game at home on the road, even if they win all their games at home. They still need to win on the road. And they're hoping this is where it happens, game 2. Dave Newell is a referee for the game as well. In the first, they believe the Bruins are going to play the body more than game 1, as we see Mike Milbury throwing a check on Bill Nyrup, but also got himself out of the play as Nyrup rolled off the check, causing Milbury to crash into the boards. Montreal gets a dandy chance off Guy Lapointe's stick, and the goal judge believes it was in the net. But Newell waves it off, and the puck did not go in the net. So good for Newell to see how that went down. It rang off the post is what it did. Larry Robinson picks up a tripping penalty that personally, on one glance, I would not have called as Bob Miller of the Bruins. He really sold it. Montreal did very well in killing it, but just seconds after the kill, Réjean picks up a penalty. Boy, it's Montreal going to the box here. But Montreal, again, does a good job killing it. But interestingly, right after the kill, Boston put some pressure on the Habs. But Dryden is able to stop the puck. After Montreal gets a couple of power plays of their own and not cashing in, Jacques Lemaire has a great chance in front of the Bruins net, but Cheevers is able to make a sweet save, keeping the game scoreless. The period winds down to a scoreless tie. In the first intermission, Irvin brings a program about the Boston Bruins by Dave Hodge with Don Cherry, talking about how he puts the team together and his system of play, including their aggressive forechecking. Don seemed pretty proud that they scored 300 goals this season. Now, only the Bruins, the Canadiens, and the Islanders did that in this particular season. And hey, he should be. That's a proud achievement right there if you're one of only 3 teams. Irvin then talks to the GM of the Canadiens, Sam Pollock, and his introduction into the Hockey Hall of Fame. Pollock worked for Dick's father, Dick Irvin Sr., with the Habs. Even Irvin Sr. coached from 1940 to 1955, won 3 Stanley Cups for Montreal. So there you go. That's a long time, especially now. Like, that's a very long time to be with one team. And hey, he was successful, so why not? In the second period, the Bruins win the draw, in the Canadian zone. And after some maneuvering with the puck, Terry O'Reilly passed a puck back to Brad Park, who directed one, as Irvin states perfectly, from the point, and was able to beat Dryden, giving the Bruins a 1-0 lead. Much like they had in Game 1, Montreal stormed back with 4 goals, though. And I also know the Montreal Canadiens, so, okay, the game's not over. This doesn't mean much to this club, Montreal. That's just a goal. They battle back, and on a shot, Cheevers kicks it towards the corner, but Schutt is there to get the puck and able to shovel one past it down Cheevers and tie the game up at 1. Montreal does appear to be getting some good pressure in the Bruins zone and may have some extra space that may not have been there for almost the first half of the game. Some very good end-to-end actions happening now and a very close checking. After a very close checking first. We also see the then Prime Minister of Canada, Pierre Trudeau, there seeming to be having a heck of a time watching these two rivals battle it out. I know he was a big-time Montreal Canadiens fan. Boston appears to be tightening the checking back up. A crazy play as Bob Gainey fires a backhand near the point, and the puck drops like a tennis ball, goes through Cheevers' legs, and bounces off the post. Right near the end of the frame, the Bruins and Canadiens mix it up a little as maybe some of the tempers are starting to get a little inflamed out there. Period ends with a tie. It's now 1-1. Bruins are doing well for most of the night with their checking. Boston needs to keep that game plan going, and maybe they need to able to scratch one out at the Forum. Shots after 2 are 18-13 for the Bruins. In the second intermission, they have a program showing Guy Lafleur through his years playing hockey, including when he played hockey for the Quebec Ramparts, where incredibly he notched 233 goals in just 2 seasons. Lou Nan then speaks with Irvin about the game. Irvin really seemed to move around a lot and do a lot of things at Hockey Night in Canada. He was everywhere. Did hosting, interviews, did the color for Gallivan. He was everywhere. Hey, and it is kind of funny to me because I've always hated the Habs, but I always had extreme high respect for Dick Irvin, as well as Danny Gallivan. I wasn't very old when he passed away, but always had the highest respect for Dick Irvin, even though, I couldn't stand the Habs. During the interview, I see Nan, he's like I would be. He's like sweating buckets under the hot lights that he's under. So we're into the third period here, and the checking is tight again. And both teams are dumping the puck into the offensive zone, which I must say does not happen maybe as often in hockey nowadays. Teams tend to want to keep control of the puck. A lot of teams, that's big part of their game plan is keep control of the puck, bring it into the zone, contain control, and create chances that way. I say, remember though, the quickest way to tucker out the other team is play the body. It is. Maybe if someone can get a chance and pop a goal in, the game might open up. O'Brien for Montreal picks up an elbowing call, giving the Habs a man advantage. On the replay, I see Lambert got rock good with an elbow. It was definitely a solid elbow. On the penalty kill, Shepard comes down the ice on a breakaway, but isn't able to really get a shot on the net as he didn't have enough time to control the puck as the Montreal defenseman poked the puck a little out of control. Power play ends, and later on in the period, with just under 8 minutes left, Doug Jarvis slips a behind-the-back pass to Gainey, who shows off a very nice shot by beating Cheevers high right into the top corner, putting the Habs up 2-1. And yes, the game opens up a little since the goal, and the Habs continue to put pressure on Boston. But the game is tightened back up after Cournoyer is unable to put one past Cheevers, who roams wonderfully out of his net to prevent a third goal against. Cournoyer, a couple minutes later, comes down on a slight break, but Cheevers is able to stop the puck. And when the puck, he was able to stop the puck, and then when the puck comes down the ice, Rick Smith, who usually is not playing this deep, fires a puck into the net after it is left loose in the deep slot. Just 4 minutes left in regulation, and the Bruins should feel excellent that they were able to tie this game back up with this team, the Montreal Canadiens. They're on the road looking for this win. On an attempt by Stan Jonathan to lift Nyrup's stick, his own stick fires up and hits Nyrup in the face and left the ice likely to get some stitches. It was a good one. Rattel had a great chance in front, but Dryden kicked the puck up high away from the net. Both teams get away to a 2-2 tie after 60 minutes, meaning we are going to overtime at the Forum. In this intermission, Dan Kelly talks with Jean Beliveau and Mike Bossy, a couple of absolute Hall of Famers here and big scorers. Jean talked about an overtime goal he scored against the Bruins in the semifinals in 1969. Incredibly, that was the only playoff overtime goal he ever scored. I would think he'd have a few more than that, but then, because he played so many playoff games, but maybe it's because Montreal was just that good. Maybe. There you go. Bossy then talked about the overtime goal he scored against the Leafs in this very playoff. Both think the Habs are going to win the game. Bossy thinks Lafleur or Cournoyer. Beliveau thinks Lemaire. We will see what happens. Irvin then talks to Nan, and like the other two, picks the Habs, and he thinks Lemaire will score the winner. So yes, we're going to see what happens here. In overtime, Scotty Bowman continues to use just 3 defensemen since Nyrup has not returned since the high stick to the face. He's using Serge Savard, Lapointe, and Robinson. That's it. Incredible. Quite crazy. Do I need to mention they're all Hall of Famers? Jean Rattel gets the puck in the neutral zone, but he has an excellent straight line to the net. He comes in hard on the net and fires a shot, but Cheevers stops the puck, directing the puck behind the net. Montreal gets some amazing chances to win the game as both Cournoyer and Lambert get dynamite chances, but Cheevers stops it. He's not scoring on me. Cournoyer lays down next to Cheevers, looking completely gassed and ready for this game to be over after he had such an amazing chance to win. But once again, the Bruins can thank Cheevers for keeping the Bruins in it. There is a report that Nyrup has gone to the hospital with a cut under his eye and will be unavailable for the rest of the game. Robinson then brings a puck towards the Bruins net and tries to tuck it home, but Cheevers is like a brick wall, not allowing the Habs to be victorious. But, alas, Lafleur comes down the right wing and uses that excellent shot he had and fired a shot past Cheevers, giving Montreal the win finally, a 3-2 win in overtime. And Bossy was right. So there you go. That's the first 2 games of the 1978 finals. My last video, part 6. I'm going to talk about the rest of the series. Montreal is up 2-0. And we'll take it from there and see how it goes. So until next time, enjoy your hockey, guys.